In the shadowed province of Libya, where the sun scorched the earth and old terrors clung like mist over a poisoned lake, one question haunted the people of Silene. What power could demand the life of a king's own daughter, turning a prosperous city into a trembling altar of sacrifice? On the day that question reached its cruelest answer, a lone knight rode into view, his armor bright as a shard of fallen sky. The world would remember what followed as a clash for the ages. Could one man's faith truly break the dragon's reign of fear? Silene had not always been a city of dread. Once it lay quiet beside a vast, stagnant pond, its surface a dull mirror for the relentless sky. But from that water rose a dragon, born of darkness and venom. Its scales were black as midnight, its eyes like coals raked from a dying fire. Its breath was poison, fields withered where its fumes drifted. The air itself seemed to sicken. At first, the city bought its survival with sheep. Twice each day, the beast demanded a living offering. Shepherds drove their flocks to the pond's edge, and the dragon fed. But flocks are not endless. When the last sheep vanished into its maw, the dragon's hunger did not fade. It grew. Then the lots began. Names were drawn from among the people. One by one, men and women walked the road to the water, their families left behind in helpless grief. No warrior could stand against the monster. Those who tried never returned. Their armor lay scattered in the dust, their bones bleaching under the merciless sun. The king of Silene, who had once ruled in comfort, now lived in terror. He had one child, a daughter whose grace and kindness were known throughout the city. When the lots were cast again, the fatal token fell to her. No bribe, no plea, no royal decree could change it. The people had given their children. The king could not spare his own. On the appointed day, the princess walked alone toward the pond. She wore her finest robes, as if for a wedding, though her steps were heavy as chains. Dust clung to her hem. Tears carved pale tracks down her cheeks. From a distance, the people watched, unable to help, unwilling to look away. Their city had become a place where hope itself seemed a kind of cruelty. It was then that St. George arrived. He was a soldier of the Roman Empire, born in Cappadocia to Christian parents. Tall, broad-shouldered, and resolute, he rode a white charger that shone against the dun earth. His eyes, dark and steady, held the hard light of desert stars. He had travelled far, seeking truth in a world that punished his faith. Tortures had tested him before. Threats had tried to bend him. Yet his belief had not broken. Seeing the princess in her sorrow, he drew rein and dismounted. Dust swirled around his greaves as he approached her. He asked why she wept, why a royal daughter walked alone towards such desolation. She begged him to leave. Her voice was soft, worn thin by fear, like wind skimming over still water. The dragon would come, she said. It was vast, unstoppable, its jaws wide for her flesh. No man could stand against it. She did not wish another death on her conscience. George listened, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, Ascalon. He heard in her words not only dread, but resignation. The quiet surrender of a people who had forgotten how to resist. In the name of Christ, he told her, he would not abandon her. He vowed to stand with her, whatever rose from that pond. The first warning was a tremor underfoot, a low, grinding rumble that seemed to rise from the bones of the earth. The pond's surface, once still, began to churn. Black water bubbled and frothed, coughing up foul vapors that stung the eyes and throat. The air thickened with the stench of rot and sulfur. Then the dragon came. It burst from the water in a storm of spray and shadow, a colossus of muscle and malice. Its wings unfurled like tattered sails, blotting the sun. Scales, slick and dark, caught what little light remained and turned it to a dull, oily sheen. Its eyes burned with a cruel, knowing fire. Venom dripped from its fangs, hissing where it struck the stones, eating pits into the rock. Twice the height of a man, its body coiled with terrible strength. Its tail lashed the ground, carving furrows deep as open graves. The earth itself seemed to recoil. George did not flee. He made the sign of the cross, steadying his soul against the wave of dread that washed over him. Then he swung into the saddle of his white horse, setting his lance firm beneath his arm. The princess shrank back, hands pressed to her mouth, but he called to her to stand fast. The Lord, he said, had sent him for this very hour. The dragon lunged. Claws like scythes raked the air. George's steed reared, hooves flailing. In that instant, he drove his lance forward with all his strength. The point struck true, punching through the thick scales at the dragon's shoulder. A gout of black blood erupted, spattering the ground. Where it fell, the earth smoked and sizzled. The dragon's roar shook the sky. It twisted, writhing in fury, and its tail whipped around with the force of a falling tree. The blow struck George's horse, hurling beast and rider to the ground. Dust exploded around them. The princess cried out, certain she had watched her last hope die. But George rolled clear, armor scraping over stone. Venom had scored his breastplate, leaving jagged cracks like lightning. His body ached, but his spirit did not falter. He rose to his feet, drawing Ascalon in a single, ringing motion. Under his breath he prayed, not for glory, but for strength to pierce this ancient evil. The dragon loomed above him, its breath a storm of poison. Grass blackened and crumbled to ash wherever the fumes drifted. It snapped its jaws, missing him by inches as he darted beneath its belly. His first blows glanced off its scales, each one as hard as a forged shield. Sparks flew. The dragon's laughter was a hideous, rasping sound. Venom splattered his armor again, eating at the metal, cracking it like eggshell. Heat and stench pressed in on him. He retreated, seeking a moment's shelter beneath a nearby orange tree, its leaves trembling in the poisoned air. The dragon thrashed, maddened by pain from the lance wound in its shoulder. Its own rage distracted it. George's eyes searched for weakness. He knew brute force alone would not win this battle. Circling wide, he studied the rhythm of its movements, the flex of its wings, the rise and fall of its chest. Then he saw it, a vulnerable joint beneath one wing, where the scales thinned and the flesh pulsed, unarmored and exposed. He stepped out from the tree's scant shade, resolve hardening. With renewed vigor, he charged. The dragon swung its head toward him, jaws gaping, but he was already moving, low and swift. Ascalon flashed upward in a bright arc. The blade found the tender gap and drove deep, slicing through liver and heart. The dragon's scream tore the air. The sound rolled across the plain, rattling the distant walls of Silene. Black blood poured from the wound, a torrent that drenched the ground. The soil drank it like a curse. Grass shriveled, stones smoked. The very air seemed to burn. The monster convulsed. Its wings beat wildly, stirring a choking wind. Its tail smashed the earth in blind agony. Yet George held fast, both hands locked on the hilt, twisting the sword deeper. He felt the great body shudder around the steel. At last, the dragon's strength failed. Its wings sagged, its tail fell still. With a final, rattling breath, it collapsed in a steaming heap, its bulk sinking into the scorched earth. Silence followed, sudden and immense, broken only by the ragged sobs of the princess. George stood amid the stench and ruin, chest heaving, armour scorched and cracked. He pulled Ascalon free, the blade slick with black blood. Then he turned to the princess, his voice calm despite the carnage. "Take your girdle," he told her, "and bind it around the dragon's neck." She stared at him, uncomprehending. The beast lay vast and terrible at her feet, its jaws still lined with razors, its eyes dim but not yet empty. Yet she trusted him. With trembling hands, she removed the girdle from her waist and stepped forward. The dragon did not stir as she looped the cord around its neck. Then, to their astonishment, the monster rose, not in fury but in meekness. Its eyes, once blazing with malice, were dull. Its limbs moved as if under another's will. When the princess tugged gently on the girdle, the dragon followed her like a hound on a leash. Together they walked toward Silene, the princess, leading the tamed horror. George, sword at his side, stride steady. Behind them, the poisoned pond steamed in the sun. Panic seized the city as they approached. From the walls, sentries shouted. Gates slammed shut. People fled through the streets, seeking refuge in temples and houses, barring doors against the nightmare that now walked calmly toward them. The sight of the dragon, no longer a distant terror, but a presence at their very threshold, shattered what little courage remained. On the battlements, the king looked down and saw his daughter alive. Relief and disbelief warred in his face. Beside her walked a stranger, and behind them loomed the beast that had devoured his people. George stepped forward, raising his voice so that it carried across the square and up to the walls. He called out to them not as a conqueror, but as a herald. "Fear not," he proclaimed. The Lord had sent him to free them from this scourge. If they would believe in Christ and be baptized, the dragon's life would end that very hour. The words hung in the air. Slowly doors opened. People emerged, drawn by the sight of the once invincible monster standing docile under a maiden's hand. Awe rooted them in place. They saw not only the dragon, but the man who had faced it and lived. The king, voice shaking, pledged his oath. He and his household would convert. His people would follow. Crowds gathered in the shadow of the beast. Men, women, and children pressed close. 20,000 souls by the old reckoning. Priests of the old gods who had once presided over sacrifices stepped aside as new rites began. Water was brought. Names were spoken. One by one, they received baptism, turning from the altars that had never saved them. When it was done, George lifted Ascalon once more. The dragon waited, bound and subdued. With a single decisive stroke, he severed its head. The great body toppled, lifeless at last. He left it there in the field, a grim monument to the ruin that had been and the deliverance that had come. Silene changed from that day. The altars of the old gods crumbled, their stones repurposed or left to moss and dust. In their place rose churches, simple at first, then grander, built on ground once stained by sacrifice. The king's court embraced the cross. From the palace to the poorest home, the story of the knight and the dragon became a living memory, retold whenever fear threatened to return. George's deed bound the city to Christianity, its people forever debtors to his courage and his faith. Yet the tale did not remain in Libya. Word travelled along the trade routes, carried by merchants and pilgrims, soldiers and priests. Across deserts and seas the story spread. In time, crusaders in the Holy Land invoked his name in their own desperate battles, crying out to St. George as they charged. Far away in England, a land he had never seen, his legend took deep root. There they pointed to Dragon Hill in Berkshire, and said no grass grew where his blade had spilled the beast's blood. Knights across Christendom bore his emblem, a red cross on a white field. Kings claimed his patronage. In paintings and carvings, tapestries and songs, the dragon became more than a beast. To medieval minds, it was the image of Satan himself, of chaos and sin, and all that sought to devour the soul. George, lance levelled and sword raised, stood as its conqueror again and again. Yet the power of the tale lay not only in banners and battle cries. It endured because it spoke to something deeper. George came to embody defiance against despair, the refusal to bow before terror, whether it rose from a poisoned pond or from the darker waters of the human heart. His spear was faith, his armour conviction, his victory, a promise that evil, however vast, could be faced and overcome. What began as a question over Silene's lake still lingers. Could one person's resolve truly slay the dragon? In Silene, the legend says it did. And in the quiet chambers of conscience, in moments when fear coils and hope seems small, the battle continues. An echo of a knight's unyielding stand on a scorched Libyan plain, where a dragon fell and a city learned to breathe again.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Make sure to leave a comment with who you want covered next.